I'm very pleased and honored to present Professor Managi. I think it's one of the most original environmental ecological economists, and I don't like definitions, but when he's really one of the most productive and diversified scholars. I always read his papers in the new papers with great interest. So as you see, he's into many things. So climate change, natural resources. He's editor of the very good journal, Resource and Energy Economics. He just launched a new journal on economics of disasters and climate change, on a very key and hot issue in natural disasters. He just among many things, he published this book about Inclusive Wealth Report 2018, which is another part of the story along his research. So the issue of sustainability, SDGs, and so I stop here because I wanted to and so the floor is yours. So.
Thank you. I'm trying to talk about sustainability. That's your project. Also, the hope for the many interest for the students. This is my second time here. I was here last time maybe 5 years ago. I was invited. So this is a great opportunity for me coming back here again. So I want to connect my story by defining sustainability in the realistic term, and not just defining it, since me and also maybe many of you economics professions, we measure it and also try to use it in practice, then try to bring to the next related topics that maybe economic policy will be more interesting. So we have a group, Urban Institute, under the Kyushu University. Our goal is to set up a good database related to the regional country database, in addition to the corporate database. We have a corporate trade networks, how much one company trade to the other companies, not on the bigger company, but small, medium firms included in Japan. I was told that in Europe, now the same database will be now developed by getting the data for the not just a bigger company, but all for the small, medium companies. The database includes probably not just a financial account, but also the characteristic of the CEO and relation to the transactions. So I'm going to talk about first global issues and then back into the country topics. So this is a map. For example, the other side of the country here from the US, how close to the airplane within 9 hours, and the most convenient or congested directions. So Europe is just in the hot spot. So, it's most accessible area from the US. That's why people come here more and you go to US more. It's crossing the East Asia, which is part of South Japan, where I'm from. So, that we see that economic development, and it makes us to reach to the even farther areas, given the restriction, but still we don't want to go too far away. For example, probably I don't go much to the South America, because it's a total opposite. I go to India. I was in India last week. I go to Europe because jet lag is not that problem to me if I'm waking up late. But if I go to US, I don't want to go because in the daytime I'll be really sleepy. So economy matters a lot, and it's emit much more emissions. So more the economics goes in, more climate change, more emissions, more energy usage was the main topic in the global agenda. So you might know the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So this is a goal every 15 years. United Nations agreed to decide what we're going to do for the next step. So this is a goal from the 2015 to 2030. I was in the role to promote more science evidence in the public policy for the United Nations. I often work with United Nations group. So it was maybe good or bad way to more toward the climate, more toward the resource constraint, rather than health, education, or other soft kind of things. So that's why one think tank in the World Resource Institute set up how each goal are more connected to the resource constraint, more climate change area. And most of them, more than 50% of the each data that United Nations gonna carry about are more close to the climate change, okay? So we see many discussion about climate change that we have been seeing in the newspaper for past 10 days in the Spain. So world is more going for the climate oriented. Then reality is once each country got their data, like regional data, Ferrara or Bologna or anywhere, or Italy, or maybe this graph is not that easy to see. So this is each division in the United Nations. They got from the requested data from each countries. For example, if I was a United Nations environment, I get requests to each country. Can you give me the data for Italy's north, south emission data, okay? And for example, OECD requests to the many type of the OECD countries data only, but not China's data. So this takes time. Then United Nations Statistical Office merge everything together, okay? So in this time, there's a gap between what they want to do and each division get together. So always there's a mistake in the one process to the next other. So in the end, we may say SDGs is a big issue and we're gonna need a huge multi-billion of the euro to set up new institution to make the society better. But the reality is not really data-based. So that's why we try to understand we should make sure for the objective of the society instead of just checking about each indicator of the Sustainable Development Goal for education, poverty, and the environment. And maybe mistake comes. For example, if I'm the policy maker and SDG has 17 goals, maybe society in particular areas satisfying the 15 goals, but failing the 2 of them. And if that 2 was most important to the society, that was not good. But if we are just counting, probably we don't know that. So the science community suggested we should integrate many things together to understand better. So in the past, people are looking at the gross domestic development, GDP. So this is about simply the consumption plus investment. Consumption for this year's our happiness, investment for the future's happiness or well-being. But we know that more that we construct, we destroy the coral reef or good forest, we're gonna have more increase in GDP. If I was in cancer, I get to hospital, the GDP increase, but I'm injured. So many things is not reflected. So that's why there's a call for many different indicators that is not reflected. It starts from the President Sarkozy in France, looking for the 2 Nobel Prize in economists, Joseph Stiglitz, Amartya Sen, then set up the new indicators. So this discussion is passed to the OECD now. One major regret that Joseph Stiglitz did is he was proposing that we should have something that's replacing GDP. There are huge critics from the many economists saying that you cannot replace GDP. It has been used for the many good reasons too. So he's now saying we should complement the GDP. So GDP is fine. We use it for many economic activity, but let's look at something more for next indicator for sustainability to complement the GDP so that we can see what's the meaning to the well-being improvement from the environment, culture, or education, or health. So then global activity comes in to set up new indicators in the United Nations, especially from the environmental divisions. People used to care about manufacturing capital or physical capitals. So here in the physical capitals include more for road, building, or infrastructures. So this is high correlation to the GDPs. So we know that this is all in the stock value, not in the flow. So stock in the sense of if it's broken, we subtract, more investment comes every year, we multiply always. And then from the 1980 to 1990, people start to realize not just for the physical capital stock, human is important as a product of education and of the good health. So that is estimated from the value of the educations, how many years you are in school, and more you are educated, you produce a higher wage for the lifetime being. And we can calculate expected outcome from the education in each country by following the past data to the futures. So even though we may not be true in the actual next 20 years economic situation, but we kind of understand how many population in the futures in each country, what the educational change over time. Then using the current discounted amount of the human capitals, we calculate as a value for education and health as human capitals. So many economic growth literature, both theory and practice, focus on capital, which is physical capital, and labor, which is more human capitals, but neglected the value for the natures. So that's why from 1990s to up to recently, more the literature coming to the climate change and the environmental issues. That's why it's the main issues in the SDGs, which is called natural capitals. In the past, in the 1990s, no data. We don't know how many countries emit how much emissions. We don't know how much resource we'll be using it. There's no similar database between Italy and France. No similarity between Japan and Italy. So United Nations, OECD, many organizations set up the similar database to be concise that many people can use it and suggest it. It started from the system of national accounts that national economy need to set up the good system to compare each countries. And going to the green data, green growth from the OECD, coming together with the WAVES, which is World Bank activity, now connected to the United Nations environment, inclusive wealth. Inclusive wealth is good, which is a summation of all the three capitals that I have explained for the nature, human, and physical. The theory suggests by the Kenneth Arrow, again the Nobel laureate, increase in the inclusive wealth, which means increase in the capitals that future society are embedded from. It guarantees the future increase of the sustainability. So as long as it increases the inclusive wealth, or I would say inclusive growth, which is a terminology in the SDGs by UN, it guarantees the sustainability. So that was good. Our paper in the science, which suggested that SDGs' main goal is taking into this use of inclusive wealth. Not just Kenneth Arrow, now advised by the Partha Dasgupta from the University of Cambridge, and the former two Nobel laureate on the system accounting, it's a huge effort in the theoretical side. Even they prove this is true, that inclusive wealth is good for the sustainability under the condition of non-optimalities. So whether society is going for optimality or not, increase in the inclusive wealth is good for the society, with a limitation that we accept the substitutionality. That means if we are using particular forestry, and if we are able to offset by mitigations or adaptations, we would say, as a society-wise, this is okay. So maybe particular environmentalist doesn't like it because they want to conserve particular species. But our indicator, we say this is good. As long as we can complement, overall society should be wisely used. We have 3 reports, 12, 2014, 2018. I was involved from the 14, and I was heading in the 18th, and also next report too. So this is good that this is the first time we include health in the human capitals. Health is very difficult to include because in the monetary term of the good health or life expectation was hard to measure in the unified way. We have a huge group of the science advisory from different experts, not just economists, engineer, ecologists, policy advisory board group member for the different division of the UN, policy directors. Many authors and the review board, including Dale Jorgensen from Harvard for the human capitals. So I'm going to explain the linkage between our capitals, also the SDGs. Key word, most important word in the SDGs is inclusive growth. So this is a growth in the inclusive wealth in our terminology. Also in the public document, it hasn't yet to clearly state that. Natural capital more connect to the climate actions of the number 13 of SDG, number 14 of the clean oceans. Physical capital, manufacturing capital more for the development for the infrastructures. Human capital, again, health, education, and well-being. Those 3 come together to increase for the whole economic growth in the inclusive manners. So here, inclusive means not just for the simple economic term, also including income, education, and environment. So our report, which publicized in the PDF for free. So if you check in the Google for Inclusive Wealth Report 2018, or same as 12 or 14, all are available for free in the PDF. Oh, that's why actually nobody gonna buy this book, right? No point buying it if it's free. So only problem in our report that we are stating is only natural capital has been decreasing. All others are good, somewhat. So nature is in danger, but people's activities ongoing really moving in the right direction. Although the percentage of the health or education different over areas. I'm going to show about the case for Italy later. But policy is slow. Natural capital has been known for a long time. For example, natural capital coalitions as a business community in the whole Europe, whole global big company involved, has been known for 20 years. But it was only 3 years ago that first time used the word of natural capitals in the keyword or title of UN document. So it's going to take always time for public policy documentations. But in business it's faster to use that. I try to work in 3 countries. India, China, Japan. Because this is a 30%, 40% of this coming investment occurs in the global, not just a higher increase in the GDP. They have 5 to 9% GDP growth every year. We are able to put natural capital is in the policy terminology for the India. Modi, Prime Minister of India, stated, tiger is a source of capital for the sustainability or development, because tiger is important for the key species as ecosystem service. On the other hand, the goodness of inclusive wealth can capture some kind of unintended consequence. Maybe here, air pollution is not that important, but India, China, these two are important. So more the air pollution, we think this is an environmental problem. But people are damaged by health, so it's coming together the reduction of human capital by educations. Younger kids, if they are playing around in the highly polluted area, now India is the most polluted city in most of the city in top 10 in world. It used to be China for the most polluted cities. We find more than 18 billion US dollars per year of the education's value was lost. So it doesn't include impact of the air pollution to the IQ, which is scientifically, it's really unclear. So at least minimum more than 18 billion US dollar per year for the high pollution impact to the peoples. So this tells dealing with SDG can take account different dimension of the policy meaning. We can think about from the education side, we can think about from the policy side, also the natural capital preservations. China is different. China is more toward using main keyword to be the goal. They put one road, one belt policy. So more the connection in the network. In this sense, I think your project term of the connection or supply chain. Then the economy can be sustainable. So we try to replace their word in the inclusive wealth growth with collaborating to the colleagues in the Chinese Academy of Science. So we are already producing the very detailed global map that we have 30 meters by 30 meters or 100 meters mesh in the global scale for the whole land use, which covers China, India, but also anywhere in the Europe. For that, we know how each year's land use has been known. We try to map using the economic term of the three capitals and depth into that. Try to promote where the economic zoning comes in, how the new policy is making the societies better. Third country is Japan. Japan is much more on the local based. Politicians in the central government only interested in the case if I succeed in the local town. They don't care in one sense that Nobel laureate said or United Nations because they cannot handle the difficult things. They think if you succeed in the local community, that is good to talk to the others. So probably this is true. So we create database for the GDP and inclusive wealth for different part. I put the circle here because I'm from here. Center is Tokyo. So you can see the particular red colors in the central part in Japan. Same as value for natures and the human capitals. Clear difference is more the area developed, much higher value for easy reason. Human capital, physical capital, inclusive wealth, but much less for the natural capitals. But all three value helping us to predict the future value for each company's performance. So there are many forecasting techniques. Nowadays, machine learning or deep learning or usual econometrics, they tend to use supply chain network for the high accuracy for the company's growth. We are adding these grid-based data for the community to make the forecast better. You know, here are the reasons. Company in particular area in Tokyo or my area in Fukuoka, they can develop faster because in that regions, it's much rich in the human capital. That means you can hire the better peoples. Much better in the physical capital because they are good higher access. And somehow you are good in the natural capital. You have a good tourism spot for nature tourism. So capital as a stock value helps them to grow more. So our forecasting accuracy improve even in small medium enterprise. So I'm trying to use this indicator for the public policy purpose, but even for the finance people or for economic companies forecasting peoples, this database will be useful. Okay, then I'm trying to move ahead for more general innovation or people's well-being studies by connecting these inclusive values. So I first talk about more general topic in efficiency gain or innovation first. Later on, I'm trying to bring back to these inclusive values. So in the economic innovation literatures, we know, suppose this circular economy or recycling or waste treatment is important. Once we are excluding or forget about waste or plastic waste, because we're going to have a high cost for the recycling or reusing later on, there's a damage to the economic growth. So future economic growth need to take account those waste or externality into account for themselves, not for the environment, for their own economic growth. To do that, we prove uniform subsidy or uniform payment for the research and development is better than, as a policy maker, I select who to be funded. Okay? First two are economic theory-based ideas. So the second point here, what I'm telling you is, suppose there are many proposals for the research in the company level or public policy. Often, as a policy maker or politician, I want to choose this is a future issue for Nobel laureate kind of things. But often this fails in theory. So it tells relatively flat, uniform-based method will be helping each scientist, each engineer to innovate more because of the learning. Okay, this is the known things in innovations. And more in the empirical side, we shows using the data of European Union's emission trading data, higher the ETS price, more efficiency for the better resource management and energy efficiency come together. So if the EU emission price go lower, people use coal a lot, higher, then reduce a lot. It directly coming together. So it's not the 5 years, 10 years lag. It's just 1 year's consequence. This is similar for the OECD countries, plant level data for the power generations. More the environmental regulation encouraging the 5 years lag for better efficiency gain. So these are relatively known. So now we are having much pressure for the circular economy, or more for the climate in the futures. So those innovations coming together as data will be showing it. And then the last point is now farm company side, user economy side, that's going more rational, people rational. In the people side, it's so unclear in the sense that many economists, many engineers start to utilize social network account and how people react to the event in the disasters or big catastrophic issues. And it's been unclear. People care about what other people say also. Economic theories prove people doesn't care about other people's incomes. So I'll be happy if I care about my others. I don't care about you. But our data in the global 35 countries, big data shows people care each other. So that's why in the homogeneous countries, improvement over time will be good for all of the peoples. So we are showing this in our Nature Sustainability article that even for the energies acceptance and what kind of energy source do you want to be different by country, same as within countries, huge difference. So idea about the resource use will be so different. So policymaker scientists often says one size doesn't fit all. So we cannot just put one policy that apply anywhere. Also in the different terms, policymakers want to say in the each region by region, they want to suggest in the different ways because people's idea, people's understanding are so different. But the point is, country by country, it's so different. I'm talking about a case of Japan as an example from now on because I'm connecting people's subjective well-being to the more social use, okay? In this y-axis, vertical axis is about subjective happiness. Simply asking how happy you are. I don't know Italian is happy, but Japan is unhappy countries. Japanese work longer than more, and they hate more the companies. That's why from 20 to 60s, Japan's happiness goes down, okay? But this is kind of country characteristic. And then those happiness data sometimes not useless, not useful, because we cannot check Italian people's happiness directly compared to Japanese happiness. So the paper by Benjamin published in the American Economic Review in the 2016, they shows choice modeling will be the good tool to compare and make it even the utility framework better. So they did by asking about particular people's social interest and using choice modeling relationship, trying to compare one to another's instead of using the happiness. So that's suggesting creating the integrated index, okay? So initially, I was talking about inclusive wealth. This is an input to the societies. Now I try to connect to the output side of the people's utilities. So people doesn't like showing the number for utility, but the recent literature by Benjamin and others are coming up to try to do more. So it can tell us what kind of social values you want to prefer compared to others to spend more money. So let's think about the relationship with local peoples and the family values. So those can be make it to the unified index compared to the income here. So this means, let's say, social capitals. We didn't know what's the value for the culture, what's the value for the religions. But using choice matrix, we're able to compare one to another's. Maybe this figure is not clear, but in this one, horizontal axis is consumptions. Vertical axis is our calculated well-being using the Benjamin's approach, okay? So we shows consumption is not good enough to prove the well-being of the people. This is the case for Japan's by using individual data. The other evidence shows Jones and Krenov, also again the 2017 American Economic Review paper, they directly calculate the different type of the utility, okay? The one I show here is more individual by individual, asking questions. The right-hand side is by country's comparison for good consumption, good leisure time, unemployment, many other things, directly making to the one unified indicators, showing that, again, horizontal axis is usual GDP, and vertical axis is our unified way. Again, some variations, okay? So in using 2 case studies for individual and aggregated one, both shows even positively correlated. There are many variations that we cannot explain by GDPs. But by using inclusive wealth compared to our unified indicator by country, the correlation is much more. It's more than 90%. So that's why we are proving both from input and outside for the better well-being to be the use of unified indicator, same as a bottom line of the inclusive wealth. Okay? How much time I have? 15? Okay. I try to move on to the health issues. Health is nowadays important. Even you think about general economy or regional development. I was just told that so much difference in the north, south Italy's. Probably same as Europe as north and south, or east and west. We have calculated health-induced human capitals for the 25 years. Red color means relatively lower increase, but all the countries that we can get the data increase. Futures for the next 80 years is different. Italy shows the average increase per year is 0.3%. So that means every year for the future value for the health-related human capital increase is less than 1%. So this means either people are moving out or people's life expectancy doesn't improve much. So this is a problem for many advanced countries. Once reach enough life expectancy, their future human capital is not growing that much. By using those data, I try to get back to the story in Japan. Oh, by the way. So Italy is 0.3, so same as Spain, Portuguese, and UK. But somehow Germany and France are a bit higher for 1.5%. So I don't know why. But going back to the historical past 25 years, some country in Europe is higher, which is orange color, but the red color, Italy, was relatively lower for the other results. And again, maybe you could explain me better. The case in Japan, probably similar in the many countries in Europe, is more aging economy. If I ask the medical professor in the United States, they say biggest challenge for the medical society and the medical issue is aging. So people are getting older and older and not producing much as before, as a society as a whole. Japan's highest ratio for the senior people, more than 65. But sooner the European countries are catching up in 20 years. And then many OECD countries, it's saturated to the 40% of the senior in the economies. So main problem is a pension problem. Pension problem is more the younger kids getting smaller number. They have to cover many people for all the people to be sustained. Again, looking back first, this is essentially the budget problem, okay? So we can use the technique in the resource and the environmental economics to the medical problem. Again, choice experiment, okay? I have discussed choice experiment can be used for comparing the quality of life of how you think it's important to involve as family compared to the income. But again, choice experiment can be used for comparing for different disease. Because again, health is most important for the peoples. It's the highest value for the social capitals. So we work with medical professors on asking nurse, experienced nurse, how important is curing particular disease, knowing about difficulty of the problem of disease, same as cost, how much damage to the family too, we find cancer's negative impact to be similar as depressions. People think cancer is most dangerous, but depression is similar now. But those two are still higher than, for example, lifestyle-related disease. Okay? So using, again, the common technique in the resource economics, it can be worked in the budget constraint problem in the medical issues. Medical says cancer, heart disease, it's possible to solve now. So if the societies, institutions set up well, now not expensive to cure those two. Remaining is dementias, which is more than 3% of the GDP in the OECD countries. So I want to use this example as policy suggestion for even non-environmental issues, like health issues. Same technique, like choice experiment, can be used because it can tell different metrics, different dimensions of the data to be the one indicator by asking people. Finally, since I don't have much time, I quickly go through the current huge investment for the climate and green bond, okay? Then finally connect to the inclusive wealth again and finish it. Green bond is a public money or public purpose direction for the more money for the public money to be used for the better green and climate issues. More corporate, financial institutions are interested in this. Huge increase in the green bond initiative and also the rule started from the Europe, now covering the North America and the US. I would say the major parties in this group coming from Europe and Asia. Rule making by Europe, more investment within Europe, within US, and in Asia. Back to 5 years ago, not much investment occurs. In these 3 years, especially 5 years, huge increase. By country, the trend is so different. Europe, it's many coming from the non-financial corporations and more from the development bank. EU Development Bank support a lot for these activities, while in the US, it's more for the different companies by local municipalities. So more renewables for Europe, more water treatment in US. I don't want to explain this complex figure, but here the main point I can only say is, even this is local issues. Suppose creating the better supply for the water or water treatment, even this is local issues. They are using international bank, such as World Bank, or private financial corporations help for making executed in particular country, especially in the US. Europe is more for the renewables. China is, it used to be renewable, but nowadays more toward transportations, making the city to be cleaner. We created the how they are more toward the climate actions by countries. Again, OECD, Europe has a homogeneous policy, all numbers same. So basically Europe, New Zealand, Brazil headed these climate actions by countries. And then some other countries coming up. Our simple econometrics tell better that they have a good regulations, financial system, and also the better in the inclusive wealth in terms of society's functions. They can be well prepared for receiving more money for green bond which make the outcome of sustainability to be possible. So this is my final slide. I think almost final slide. So I was showing initially includes wealth to be the good indicator for sustainable development goals. And using example in China, India, Japan to show in reality in politics, it can be useful. We succeed promoting idea in India. China is still ongoing. Japan, we implement two local public policy making using inclusive wealth database, coming together with simple surveys, bridging the connection between the local stakeholders and the policy makers' wish. Okay? It used to be that policymaker doesn't know what the people want. People doesn't trust policymakers. We try to bridge this gap by showing better number and see what to be needed for the future use. Then I'm trying to develop furthermore for different utility framework using each people's survey data or country data, aggregate data to make connection for the well-being index. And inclusive wealth will predict those. Now, inclusive wealth not only will predict regional or countries' social sustainability outcome, but also it improves the prediction of the small and intermediate price growth in the profit term, revenue terms, okay? So I believe this will be true, although I wouldn't test it in the Italy or Europe. For more the higher number in the social part, like the huge value from the agriculture or tourism here, more from the other northern Italy part for the industrial part, more the cultural value from the south. And then that industry related to that will be growing faster. This is kind of obvious. But I want to say prediction will improve because of that. And my last slide, I want to highlight, I'll be doing a special issue for 3 journals. 2 of them are finance on green. So if you are working on the circular economy or something green with investment or finance, then please think about that. I'm working with David Rostock from Hong Kong, also Joe Ugra from the New York universities. Both are the experts in the finance to promote more for the green finance, connecting to the inclusive wealth. Third one is more for the sustainability science in general. You know the intergovernmental panel of the biodiversity and ecosystem service. This is the one like the IPCC for climate change, promoting the science to the stakeholders. And as I was involved, we try to create what we are measuring for the future good for the natures. And we want to have clear understanding about previous definition of the ecosystem service, same as people's contribution to the natures, combining everything together to the inclusive wealth-based natural capital to promote what the nature that we know will be good for the society, and what we don't know but we may be good is good, still good to be saved for the future use. So those more interdisciplinary one will be the third point. And if you have something in mind, please talk to me, and I'm happy to talk. And since I'm out of time, I'm going to finish now. Thank you again, and thank you for inviting me, and I wish to join the discussion for 3 days. Thank you.
Thank you for the rich talk.
Good morning. My name is Martin de Jong. I am the director of a research center at Erasmus University called The Dynamics of Inclusive Prosperity. So you'll hear the similarity in the topic, exclusive prosperity, inclusive wealth. And I am interested in the topic whether growth is possible or not. And I know that in international circles it is popular to use the term inclusive growth. But I also know that critics basically say it's an illusion, and if they want to be rude, even say it's a lie. Where do you stand in this debate?
Thank you. I think since you are studying more for the prosperity, I think probably your definition of the better growth is more difficult to achieve than what we are defining. So in our definition of the inclusive wealth, as I said, we accept the substitutionability, which means suppose I give up saving the good wetland over there. Let's say I have a good national park over there in the same Ferrara. So let's say it's offset. Okay, move ahead. But maybe in your definitions, that's not acceptable. Same as, suppose for human capitals. Maybe there are younger people who have a disability problem, and they are not educated well, and there's no good enough public support for those peoples. And by providing a particular way of working, we say we provide a chance so they can work better, but maybe that's not sufficient. So maybe in your definition, that's not good enough. But we might say this is still good because overall human capital increase, okay? So I think in my definition, or in our definition, or generally more for the people who try to use numbers, I think growth is still possible. Even though we say inclusive growth or not, growth is possible. But main challenge that we are not able to solve basically at all is inequality. Inequality of any capitals or anything enlarging. So like the Thomas Piketty that's known in France, he showed income inequality getting huge in many countries. Same as developing countries. Also, the health condition is true. In the health condition for the poor people to the rich people are so different. And the economy is showing it's mainly because of the income, not because of what they eat. Basically because of the income, higher income people can care more about health. So income inequality, health inequality, but even for the natural capitals, the inequality increase over times. Same, which include value for nature in general, same as carbon emissions. So those inequalities, in our term, it's hardest one to solve it. So including that part is the most challenging to say still growth is possible. On average by region or on average by country, still growing. But taking that particular disaggregate part is very hard. That's why I try to move ahead with asking people for the choice modeling to integrate many different heterogeneous peoples in ideas. So, you know, if I have to bet my money for whether growth is possible or not, I still bet on that, but a huge challenge remains. Thank you.
Who should I give it to?
We do have time for a couple of comments. Okay. Okay. is going to win 2 beers.
I'm Enrico Polieri. I am a student at the Master Degree of Economics and Finance at the University of Salento in Lecce, south of Italy. And I would like to understand better about the green bonds. If green bonds are only long-term bonds or also short-term, because it's my interest in the research about presentation. Okay, thank you very much.
It includes both. It includes both of them. But longer one means for 10 years to 20 years. Shorter ones can finish in the 5 years, depending on the project. But the definition is not strict in the sense. It doesn't limit to the particular ones. So basic definition is as long as it's something better in the net impact to the environment, this can be classified as green bond. Suppose there's a clean coal, okay? Clean coal is basically not that good compared to the wind powers, but still better than dirty coal. That can be classified as green bond. And many people, especially in Europe, people oppose it. But suppose one country in the Asia say this is green bond, but this is still accepted because green bond don't want to restrict the particular areas. They try to say we are increasing. Okay, to do that, the definition is rather ad hoc. It can be short, it can be longer, also it can be anything. But still, the portion of the green bond to the whole bond is only 2 to 4%. In 20 years, it's expected 10%. Some people say 10% is still low, but I say 10% is huge because many bonds or many financial investment has nothing related to the usual infrastructure. So if we limit to the infrastructure development, it's a huge impact. But again, it's both short and long. Thank you.
Okay, I have a point. Something from there. No, okay. Yeah, Sandra, please. No, we are not in a hurry. We are not in a hurry. Maybe hungry, but not.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Sandro Monteso from Crescente Science Institute. Thank you very much for your talk. I've got a question on your final slide in green finance and circular economy. The question might be somewhat general, but just to have a flavor, how is green finance actually going with respect to small, medium enterprises? Because I've done some little research on that and actually found that small, medium enterprises somehow discouraged from using these new instruments of green finance. And even when they go for circular economy practices, they still rely on standard financial instruments. My evidence was related to Europe. Maybe that you have a wider evidence on that?
It's true. New instrument, including this green bond, initial period is small, medium enterprise. It's hard to reach because initial phase of the new financial institution or any institution, the information is not known to the media companies. So basically, they don't know what's going on. Only big corporate who has a global network can reach it easily. Or they have a good connection to the international bank, like the European, US, or Japan's. So those are usually bigger companies. So that's why they are easy to get it. But now it's changing in the past 2 years because even the local government stated that we are moving for green bond by using public monies. So that means in the local community here or South Italy or anywhere, if they state that, they are not necessarily helping the finance company in the global or bigger. They want to connect to the local companies. So to do that, there's no barriers. But additional document needed. Additional document for proving you have a well-planned for the how emission is going out, how much resource will be using it, so it's kind of more additional effort. Same as once you finish the work, after 10 years, you got to report back again, what was the actual emissions, what was the actual resource use. So additional effort comes in together. So that's why maybe it's discouraged again for the small companies. But small company might want to say, we are involved in the green bond. For those company who is more higher emission intensity or resource intensity, they have a huge incentive to move ahead because they want to say they satisfy and they know take initiative on this leadership. So I think it will be changing now, but especially before 2015, mostly only big company knows that. And I don't see much company name from small intermediaries, but for the last 2 years, it's changing. I'm not so sure about Italy, but I have seen small companies' name in Asia and US too. So I think it will be easier. So this is similar trend as international certificate of the environmental ISO. It used to be only the trading company took it, but later on, even the small company who has no trade to the international take the certificate, even though they don't need to take it. The main motivation for them is they want to say in the annual report, we have this ISO to show they are good for environment. So I think they want to make us a brand and try to reduce the barrier over time. Thank you.
Okay, hopefully. If you don't have any other, I have a comment, a curiosity. You didn't talk about migrations. I mean, we need migrations because of the fact that they deliver exchange and exchange of knowledge. Also, they support countries like Germany in terms of fiscal needs. But just wondering whether you have some ideas about being how the inclusive wealth increase may affect migrations.
Yeah, thank you. We have one paper which published this year in the Japanese Journal of International Economics for forecasting capability for the within Japan migrations. So we have 47 districts or 47 states, and we have a data for migration within Japan, and better in the human capital, better in the physical capital, increase the predictability for the migrations. So more you have capital, you get more. And unless you have it, they lose peoples. So this is true for the migration within Japan. International level, I think this will be probably true. But also maybe taking account some kind of accessibility like this will be additional component. How easily maybe you can go back home, same as those two cities that you stay in the new place as original place that you may come back, both ended with a higher inclusive wealth in the newer place, but also the closeness of the connections. But I haven't done for the international level, but only in the Japan's case. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so I thank again Shun for this speech.
Thank you.